So today we're diving into a really thought-provoking essay by Mahant Sri Acharya, and it's all about something called Tantra Vigyan. Now, he makes a bold claim. He says it's not superstition at all, but actually a powerful, legitimate science that we've lost. We're going to break down his entire argument, its rise, its dramatic fall, and what he thinks is still left of it today.
Right off the bat, the author throws down a challenge to how most of us think. Is Tantra just a bunch of superstition? Or is it something much more? Could it be a great science that our modern world has simply forgotten? This is the central question he wants us to wrestle with. So he kicks things off by saying that the dazzle of new civilization, all our modern progress, has made a lot of people, especially in India, turn their backs on their own ancient sciences. He argues that we've been conditioned to see this incredible body of knowledge as, primitive, or just plain false.
And to make his point, he uses this great proverb, which basically means the grass is always greener on the other side. He claims that for a very long time, things like yoga and tantra were totally dismissed in their own homeland. It was only after folks in the West started studying them and writing about them that they suddenly became legitimate back home.
He even gives a really specific example. He talks about this sensational story in the New York Mail about some woman's incredibly powerful tantric rituals. And according to him, it was this kind of foreign attention, this outside validation, that suddenly made people think, whoa, maybe there's something to this, something as real and tangible as electricity.
Okay, so after setting that stage, the author takes us back in time. He wants to show us what he calls Tantra's golden age, a period when it wasn't seen as superstition at all, but as a deeply respected and powerful science.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. He is very careful to frame this not as magic or hocus pocus, but as a systematic, scientific process. He defines Tantra Vigyan as the science of waking up this latent power inside every human being through intense, rigorous practice. The whole goal is to generate these subtle vibrations and then focus them with a laser-like precision on a single target.
And he even breaks this down into 4 clear steps. It all starts with that rigorous practice. That, in turn, awakens this hidden inner power. From there, that power creates subtle vibrations. And then the final and most important step is to channel all of those vibrations into one single unidirectional flow to get a massive impact.
To really make this idea click, he uses the perfect analogy, a magnifying glass. Think about it. Scattered sunlight is totally harmless, right? But when you use a lens to focus those same rays into a single point, they become powerful enough to start a fire. He argues Tantra does the exact same thing with subtle human energies.
So what were the results of this focus? Well, according to the author, the powers were absolutely extraordinary and honestly kind of terrifying. We're talking about everything from the power of attraction and control to paralyzing someone or even, believe it or not, the ability to kill from a distance. These are the incredible capabilities he claims have been lost to time.
But this begs a huge question, doesn't it? If this science was so incredibly powerful, what on earth happened to it? Well, that brings us to the next part of his argument, the great fall of knowledge.
He frames this whole decline with a sense of almost philosophical inevitability. Like a great empire or even a star in the sky. He says that anything that rises must eventually fall. And this great science, he argues, was no exception to that rule.
And he lays out a pretty clear and pretty grim timeline for how it all went wrong. After the age of the great masters, the knowledge got into the wrong hands. Greedy, selfish people who used it to terrorize others. Naturally, this led to a massive public backlash where the science itself got the blame. Ancient scriptures were hunted down and destroyed, and he notes, with a real sense of tragedy, that some were just burned for fuel to heat bathwater.
So, what's left after all that destruction? The author says what we see today are just the broken pieces, the faint echoes of what was once a great and powerful science.
And he draws this really stark contrast between then and now. Those formidable ancient powers, he says they've been reduced to what he literally calls their lame modern forms. We're talking about simple chants, exorcisms, making amulets and talismans. In his view, these are just faint shadows of the original science.
But, and this is a big but, he argues we shouldn't just dismiss these modern practices entirely. His logic is actually pretty interesting. He says, look, if these things were completely fake, they would have vanished centuries ago. The very fact that people still find some benefit in them, to him, is proof that a little kernel of truth, a tiny piece of that original science, must still be in there somewhere.
And this gets us right to the heart of why Tantra has such a bad reputation today. The author's diagnosis is that whenever any complex field of knowledge gets left in the hands of uneducated practitioners, it's bound to get corrupted. And he believes that is exactly what happened to Tantra, which is why it's so often associated with fraud and charlatans today.
Now, despite this pretty bleak picture of decline and corruption, the author doesn't end on a note of despair. He actually concludes with a call to action, a hope for a real revival of this lost science.
His final plea is aimed directly at scholars and intellectuals. He's urging them to look past all the corrupted modern stuff, to take the science that's hidden underneath seriously, and to study it, restore it, and present it in its proper form so it can benefit everyone.
And that really leaves us with a final, much bigger question to think about. Whether you agree with the author's take on Tantra Vigyan or not, his essay makes you wonder how much other ancient knowledge from all over the world has been misunderstood, corrupted, or just completely lost to time. What other amazing things might we be missing out on?